5 o'clock somewhere. Not here, but somewhere. Good morning, folks, and welcome back to my farm. You are in my barn again. It has the best lighting. So today we're going to be doing a ton of work with the chicken coop, and basically I'm going to walk you guys through start to finish what I do with my chickens and how I make my compost. I'm also going to be doing a little bit of fall revamping of the coop. I tried out some stuff over the last couple months that didn't quite work out the way I wanted it to, so we're going to go back to the old method, and I'll explain to you why I'm changing it and how it makes a difference in making my compost. So let's get started. The first thing we're going to be doing is getting all of the old wood chips from the chicken coop and putting them in the compost. Since I'm going to be putting wood chips in the compost, I'm also going to flip the compost, which is going to take a little while, but I planned out the whole day to work on this. So after the wood chips are in the compost and I flip the compost pile, we will be taking new wood chips and completely filling the coop up with them. I'm also going to be changing the shape of the coop. It's kind of evolved into a circle just from the fence falling down and us putting the poles up wherever we found them. But we are getting 3 to 4 more chickens, I think, probably at the beginning of next year. I've got a rooster coming and a cuckoo-maran rooster and 3 hens. I forget what we got from McMurray. So we're actually gonna make this a longer rectangle that extends farther to the south end of the fence. Hey, baby girl. Fifi. And just essentially straighten this up a bit. I do eventually want to make this a permanent run for a few layers, but that's not in the plans right now. As sad as I am to see the garden go in the late winter, winter's actually one of my favorite times to garden because it's cool outside instead of the desert summer. So I get a lot of work done, a lot of building projects that I put off during the hot months. So I'm very excited to see what we can get done this year and expand our farm into next year. So a lot of these wood chips didn't really break down the way that they did at the beginning of the summer when I was doing this with the chickens. What I ended up changing my method to was a series of piles that they would break down and I would rake up every morning and spray water on continuously. For a while that worked pretty well until, you know, we went on a vacation, we went on a hunt, and just the general dryness of our area, it's really, really hard to maintain that moisture. Contrary to what I had done in the beginning, which was completely cover this whole area with several inches of wood chips. Now, they didn't break down as quickly over time because there was a larger area for the chickens to work with, but when it did break down, I had several large piles of very composted wood chips. So the method I'm gonna go back to now, at least for the winter, until I find a better way, is just cover the whole chicken run with several inches of wood chips. We have a ton. I do get them for free from a local tree company. For the winter time, since I'm not going to be growing a whole bunch in a couple months here, I don't need a lot of compost. I do still want to produce compost so that I have plenty to start with next spring, but I'm not in such a rush to get a lot out at one time. So this method wasn't a failure. It's not working for me right now, and it's okay to change things. I do eventually want to find the best method that's the most efficient way for me to produce tons of soil here on my property, and for now I'm still learning. So what I'm gonna do is just clean slate this whole coop and get everything I possibly can out of here, and then start over with a whole new fresh layer of wood chips. So before I put another load of that wood chip on here. This is very high in carbon. First off, I want to wet this down because there's about 5 inches of it already. And then I'm going to start mixing the old compost in with here now that there's a nice carbon layer on the bottom, because some of this is partially finished or completely finished compost. So we're going to wet this down and then start mixing while I'm still bringing loads over to the new pile. There's some good compost here in this first pile, so I'm going to sift that out because I still have one more garden bed to add those leeks to. So I'm going to do that real quick before I finish moving the compost over. Okay guys, compost is done. All of the old wood chips are out of the chicken coop. So now Chase is gonna help me out and we are going to move the electric poultry netting into more of a rectangular shape and a little bit bigger, since I am gonna be getting those 3 to 4 chickens in a couple months. It's 5 o'clock somewhere. Not here, but somewhere. What if we just do what we originally had over there and just take that corner out and then just bring these in so it's a rectangle, and that way we don't have to unravel any of that stuff. Yeah? Okay.
Look at
this. Oh. And this is your solution.
Yeah. So you don't have to mess up the holes. Broke it.
Do you need that for something?
Break it.
And then
What's your toesies?
So this is the finished product. It is rectangular, and we increased the space back here closer to where the beehive is and gave them some grass. So I will let them eat that before I cover it with wood chips, but the wood chips are going to be covered all in this area today. All in all, that wasn't as hard as it usually is. So the chicken coop fence, the perimeter is finished, and now all that's left to do with the chicken coop for my fall revamp is add wood chips. Luckily, my neighbor, they are able to help me move them with their little tractor. So that saves me so many loads with the wheelbarrow. Alright guys, well we are all done. I have raked out all of the wood chips in the coop and the chickens look really happy. So there are 3 things, well more than 3 things I'm sure, but 3 major things that I'm looking for in this method that I'm going to use over the winter. So first, over time, as long as I keep this watered, you know, well hydrated, and the chickens keep it turned, this will turn into compost. I'll add food scraps. I'll put their food on the ground so that they dig through the wood chips even more. They'll drop their manure, which is high in nitrogen. So it will be a slower, longer process because they have more of an area to work over. But over time, the bottom layers of this will create compost. Secondly, we're going into winter. I have a good chicken coop. It does have a lot of ventilation in it due to me being in a hot climate and them needing that during the summer. So during the winter, I do put a blanket over the top of the coop just to keep the drafts out. Chickens can handle fairly cold weather, so I'm not too worried about them. But the wood chips all along here will help add insulation and hopefully keep them warmer throughout the winter months. The third thing all of these wood chips in here does is provide these girls entertainment. They get very bored throughout the day, their egg production can suffer, and when they've got something to peck and scratch in, which is their natural instinct, then they just lead happier lives. And one of my goals as a homesteader and raising my own food is to practice good animal husbandry, which I believe is severely lacking from the current meat production industry. One downside to this method is the amount of space I now have to keep watered. Since my wood chips aren't in neat little piles, I have to essentially use more water than I would have before to keep this maintained at the amount of moisture it needs to decompose. But we are going into winter, so that helps. We're not in the heat of summer. Water won't evaporate as quickly, and wood chips do hold moisture very well. So all in all, I think the benefits outweigh the risks of using this method, at least for the winter time. I am not in need of any compost right now going into the winter, and with what I currently have composting, it will be enough to start me out in the spring, so I'm not too worried about it. But thank you all for joining me today. It is past noon. I am hot and tired, and I'm gonna go inside. Bye.